Morning. I have Leda Hoffmann with me today. She's from CATCO. CATCO is kids too. Two things. She's new to her position, and I want to introduce her to all you people out there in the theater world, here in Central Ohio and abroad. Because today on Let's Talk Theater, we're going to talk about the real behind the scenes, the management part, the vendor part, the how in the world do you even get to be what you are and what you're doing. So first, why don't you just tell us, Leda, who you are and what you've been doing in the theater to get you to your position today at CATCO.
Great. Thanks, Julie. I'm so glad we get this chance to talk. I am just under 2 months into my job at CATCO and CATCO is Kids. And as the new artistic director, I'm moving to Columbus from Chicago and Milwaukee before that. So I'm new to Central Ohio. I've been spending a lot of time meeting people. Right now, of course, that's mostly all on Zoom. It's been really wonderful to meet a bunch of people who have been working in Central Ohio for a long time and hearing about the amazing theater scene here. I'm just so excited to be a part of this community. I've been a director and an artistic director for a number of years. I came into theater. My dad was a foreign service officer, so he worked at embassies all over the world, and I moved all the time as a kid. And every time I moved, I would audition for the play, and then I'd have a bunch of friends. And so that's the way I started theater back, probably third grade, I think was my first play. And got to college, started to study it, fell in love with the idea of directing and the idea of collaboration and what a director gets to do to put a bunch of people together in a room to come up with something amazing, something that grips people and moves people. And I've been really fortunate that turned into a year at Hartford Stage in Connecticut, a year as a part of a residency program at Milwaukee Rep. And I ended up staying at Milwaukee Rep, working there in the education department, the literary department, starting the community engagement department, all while building my freelance directing life. Left Milwaukee after about 8 years, moved to Chicago to be a freelance director, started working with some great folks there, became the artistic director at Straw Dog Theater Company, small 32-year-old storefront theater company there in Chicago. And from that, I found out about this amazing opportunity at CATCO, started to think about the way that CATCO is telling stories that I really care about, contemporary stories, which mean a lot to me, and has this amazing young people education component as well. And so it feels like CATCO is the place that combines all of my interests. I feel like a Midwesterner in my soul. Like it feels like this is the right city for me. So here I am trying to just figure out who everybody is and what we can do next.
Wow. It seems like you have a really vast background and you started off as acting. I want to piggyback off on what you said about, as you moved a lot, that one of the ways you made friends was by joining a theater group in your schools and acting. Talk to us a little bit about how important that was for you to be able to have an outlet like theater in your life, especially as a child. It's so difficult to have to move all the time. We moved a lot from Indiana to Columbus. My father was in the Army, so we did different moves for different reasons. And I remember how difficult that always was and how hard it was too, to leave people that you had developed relationships with as a kid and not, I'm older, you're probably a lot younger now. You can keep in touch with Facebook and stuff. But when I came up, when you moved. Yeah. As a child, you just lost that friendship.
Yeah.
How beneficial was it to have that skill and that extra creative gift and outlet to help you with those moves?
Yeah, it feels like, I think because theater is such a collaborative art form, that, you know, I think it's the same, a lot of people find that in sports and being on a team, that theater is also a team building world. And it's a bunch of people who like the same thing, who are really interested in sharing stories. And so as a third grader, you know, up and through high school and through college, you meet people who all want to make something together. And I think that's how we form these really fast friendships. I mean, the professional theater world, right? You go to rehearsal, you spend a few weeks with people in a rehearsal hall. Sometimes as actors, you know, you're playing family members. Your job is to pretend you've known each other for 30, 40, 50 years. And we all just find out how to trust each other and learn about each other really quickly, because we've got to put something up that requires this level of trust. And so, you know, those are the words I have now as an adult to think back on what was important to me. But if I think about my fifth grade play, I think about just having these friends, many of whom moved a lot, who could just come together and make something. And also the urgency of having a product to put up in front of an audience gets everyone focused, everyone together on the same goal, and able to express themselves in their own way, right? Whether we're actors or designers or directors or technicians, we've all got our own way of being a part of this piece and sharing what we bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. How do you say that one of the things that you like about CATCO is the contemporary works that they present? How do you now in my segment of Let's Talk Theater, I want to talk not just about the theater, but I want to talk about how we affect our world as in the theater world, how our voices impact people, and it impacts us as you say, as actors, as the workers, as the team, and it impacts our audiences, the people that actually come to see what we produce. What do you see with what's going on right now in our world, especially here in America, in regards to racism and the homophobia and everything that's going on, the fear and hate and still love, you know, in the midst of all that, we have to still find some happiness and joy, because theater does, you know, is a part of that also. You know, that's that piece where we have the ability to affect change. And so keeping that in mind, and as you said, CATCO being such a contemporary theater mostly, they have begun the last few years to branch out more into modern day plays and into things that new works, things like that. How do you see your coming in, picking up on that, and continuing to have CATCO grow in the area of diversity in its theater ranks?
Yeah, so, you know, that's one of the reasons I took this job in the first place, is I felt like the work that Steven Anderson had been doing was moving in this direction. And in my conversations with the board of directors, current staff members, I just kept asking lots of questions about where we all, because as a unit, we have to make decisions together, where do we all see the future of this company going? And I feel like I'm working with a group of people who all are on the same page, that theater has a great power for social change, a power to affect people's lives, and a responsibility, right? With great power comes great responsibility, and therefore a responsibility to make sure that the plays we're doing are affecting people and making people think and bringing people joy. I think it's really, as theater programmers, you know, you've got to balance these. I have no intention for plays I do to ever feel like lectures, to ever feel like, you know, we're just telling people what they should think. I think what plays do is they say, come experience this story, come experience this specific perspective on the world, and then think about it. And maybe it'll make you want to go home and call your grandma, right? Or maybe it'll make you want to go home and talk to that neighbor you've never spoken to. Maybe it'll make you want to talk to your relatives who think differently than you. and help them understand what you saw in this play, what you saw in these human beings' lives right there on stage in front of you, or even in the virtual world. And I think that new plays especially have a great power to do that because they're written about the now. And there's so many great writers writing the American theater right now who can address the things that we are thinking about right this moment. I've directed a lot of Shakespeare in my life as well, and I think that really smartly done Shakespeare can take words from a very, very long time ago and help you think about your life in this moment. But I'm excited about this, CATCO, Contemporary American Theater Company, right? This mission to say, who are we right now? Let's think about this. Let's celebrate where we are. And let's also address the real trauma and the really day-to-day critical life and death struggles happening in our community and figure out how we can all come together as a collective to affect change.
Talk to us about how difficult it was for you to come to this brand new exciting job, and here comes COVID-19. Shoot, shop, can't get into the buildings. Things are happening. You can't connect physically with the students that are coming through the CATCOs as kids and the actors. How has it been? Talk to us about how you've had to rush into this new position with all of this, and how are you making it work?
Yeah, so my counterpart, Executive Director Christy Farnbot, she signed her contract, I think, on March 15th, and the theater shut down production the day after. So she signed up for something totally different and has found herself here in this world. I guess, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I didn't even apply for this job until I think it was probably April. So we knew there was a pandemic. We had no idea how long it was going to last. But when I said, hey, I'm interested in moving to Columbus, I knew that the future was incredibly uncertain. And in some ways, it's kind of nice that this is a natural period of transition. So often in these artistic director transition moments, right? Stephen was producing a series of plays and programming for next season, and I would pick those up and produce those shows and have to keep things running and show up, and we'd be in tech and we'd have all the various issues to solve of where that prop is going to come from tomorrow. And actually, I showed up and the theater is closed. We are trying to think about what we can do virtually, but we have no hard and fast deadlines that we need to hit. And that helped us just take a pause to really think and reflect and make sure that in the interview process, and then once I was hired, that we were thinking about the big picture future and not just what needed to happen in the next 3 weeks. And I'm really grateful for that time. What I'm not grateful for is the fact that feeling you get of being in the same room with people, right? I'm meeting you right now over Zoom. That's what I'm doing with so many artists in town and staff members, right, and students, and seeing people's work that way, that's been really difficult. I'm missing the conversations that happen in the lobby, right, that happen in the bar after the show, and just that natural flow of how you end up meeting people. But I've been spending probably hours and hours a day on Zoom, meeting folks, getting to know people, and at least I'm hearing hearing the stories and hearing where people are coming from, which has been really important.
Yeah. So one thing about it, Zoom has helped us to connect. I'm getting tired of connecting on Zoom, but what can you do? Only thing you can do is say, thank God I can connect, because otherwise, it'd be very difficult. So, Zoom has been eye-opener for those of us that didn't even know it existed. It's been around. We have now come into the Zoom world.
Here we are.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's cool for them too, buddy. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things are going on with CATCO right now? Let's talk about first the kids. What are you doing with CATCOs is the kids in this virtual mode?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks know Mr. Andrew, who's our education director. He spent the beginning of the pandemic reading stories, making videos, and reading books aloud to lots of students who knew him from the classroom, which was really great. And now what we're able to do is we're partnering with a number of schools. We start residencies in just a few weeks. So the work that we would normally be doing around all of the various, curriculum goals and bringing theater into the classroom, we're going to do virtually. And Andrew has figured out a whole host of ways that we can do that. We've got a series of fall classes running. So students who used to sign up for Saturday morning musicals and come to CPAC every Saturday morning are signing up to show up online. We moved summer camps online. I just watched this amazing production. The Virtual Playwriting Camp wrote their own show. It's set in a webinar, right? So you don't have to pretend that we're not talking this way. The whole play is actually set in this world. The students wrote it themselves. It's funny, it's moving. It's about 25 minutes long. And it's one of the best virtual shows I've seen so far, actually, to come out of this. And it's written by a group of, 10 to 13-year-olds. They did a really stellar job. So we're finding that students are hungry to connect and act and use theater and use their creative imaginations. And I have a bunch of artist educator teaching artist experience myself. And so I actually this summer, before this job was even a part of my life, started to teach on Zoom. And it was great to see students who want to show you, right? Like, I've got this cool prop in my closet and I can go find this hat and turn it into a character. And so I think we're all just learning in the education world how to use the tools in front of us. And we're still able to engage the storytelling minds of students, which has been great.
That sounds wonderful. So what about the adults? What's going on with them?
Yeah, so we just had a production meeting, I think yesterday, for our first show of the season. So I've put together an outline of a virtual season. I've only got titles to announce for the show that we're doing in October. And I'm thinking about the way that CATCO as theater and CATCO as kids can really keep talking to each other. So this first show in October is a collaboration between CATCO as kids and CATCO as theater. And we're doing a series of short plays by Idris Goodwin. Together they're titled Plays Towards an Antiracist Tomorrow. And what we were just talking about, right, about theater's ability to affect social change, Idris Goodwin has written these plays quite recently, right, to help people have multi-generational conversations about race. So one of the story is a young boy comes home and tells his parent that he was playing with water guns at his white friend's house. And the parent has to explain why water guns can be dangerous if you're a little black boy playing in a backyard, right? We all know the horrific stories of how that's ended in tragedy. And so this is going to be an adult actor and a child actor having a conversation together. And the goal with these is that you can watch them with your kids, or you can watch them on your own as an adult and think about how you might talk to your kids. And it's just going to bring up questions, I hope in families of all racial makeups, about the world in which we live. And so these 4 plays are all going to be presented virtually on October 24th. It's a collaboration with King Arts Complex Heart of Protest. And so we're hoping that's going to just help get the word out there of these virtual productions. And after October 24th, they're going to stay online. They're free. As part of Idris Goodwin, the playwright, said, I want to write these plays and anyone can do them. They're open to the community. Don't charge people to watch this work, right? Let's make sure that we all have access to it, which I just think is such a great way to approach these kinds of conversations. So that's the work that we're doing in a multi-generational world. One of the plays is only adult audiences and adult actors and deals with some issues that I would say are really high school and up. So we're going to talk about these questions, talk about the differences and the lived experiences of so many Americans, and start to think about that. So I'm working on that right now. Auditions are this weekend. And then we'll get those plays up. And then I'm looking towards the rest of the year and putting together a holiday show. I've got my eye on a virtual musical to happen in the spring. I definitely want to do a New Works Festival, which I think those kind of readings are really well suited to the virtual world. And then we can think about getting a play ready to do in person sometime in the future when we can do that again.
Oh, well then as a playwright, I better get ready, huh?
Yes, you should.
One more thing before we end, and that is, has it been difficult for you as a female to find, to get good jobs um, in the management level of the theater world? Has that caused you any kind of difficulties? And if so, how did you overcome them so that you could still do what you wanted to do in regards to being an artistic director of theater companies?
Whenever anyone asks me this question, I like to think about it on a broader systemic level, right? I think that when we think about these issues of bias, we all have our own personal experiences, which are really important to share. And sure, I have moments where I was in a meeting and I feel like my gender stood in the way of someone listening to my idea. But I think really the broader picture we have to think about is how many artistic directors are women, right? How many Black, Indigenous people of color are artistic directors, are in positions of management at theater companies. I think those statistics, which people are publicizing more and more, and I'm really grateful for that conversation, right? Those statistics, those numbers, they speak volumes. And they speak to the fact that we've got systems at play in the theater, in America, right? In all levels, all workplaces, we've got these systems in play that we've got to figure out how to dismantle and take apart so that those opportunities exist. And I think that naming them and knowing that all of these barriers, we know what they are. We can feel them in our day-to-day lives, but we have proof that they exist because of the ways the numbers turn out, right? And I think that I go back to those numbers and say, until we've got gender parity, until we've got a truly diverse group of people leading arts institutions in this country, in Ohio, we know that there's a whole lot of work to be done. And so, I feel very lucky to be in this position. My understanding is that I'm CATCO's first female artistic director. I've got a co-leader in Christy, so we're a female leadership team. And that's really exciting to say, here we are, and this is what we're doing. But I also don't really want it to be special, because it shouldn't be special, right? This should be an everyday occurrence.
If people want to be involved with CATCO's and CATCO with Kids, or want to audition for anything that you have coming up, or just want to know how they can get their children or themselves involved in your workshops that you have coming up, how do they go about finding that information?
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do is to go to catco.org, and there's a spot where you can sign up for our mailing list. And if you put your email in there, anytime we've got information about upcoming shows, education workshops, then we send that e-blast out to everybody. So if you're an email person, that's a really easy way to be in the know. Liking the CATCO is Theater and the CATCO is Kids Facebook pages. Also, as we're all scrolling through Facebook all the time, that'll help that information come across your feed as well. We also put out, for artists who are listening, we put out an open call, virtual open call, and the information is on the CATCO website. And basically what it asks is, if you are a director, playwright, stage manager, designer, technician, send me an email. My email is lhoffmann, 2 F's and 2 N's, at catco.org. Send me an email, send me your resume. I'm trying to get to know a bunch of Central Ohio artists, and so I would really love to hear from you. We've set up a casting email, which is casting@catco.org, and so if you send your headshot and resume to that email address, I've got those things on file, and when we've got a show that might suit you, then we can be in touch and say, hey, we've got this production coming up. Same goes for artist educators who can be in touch with Andrew. So all that information is on the CATCO website as a way to say, hey, this is the way that I want to be involved. And as audience members, the best thing to do is sign up for our mailing list, like our Facebook pages, and then you'll hear about our productions that way.
What advice do you have for anyone that wants to be an artistic director of a theater company? What advice would you give them in order to meet that goal?
Yeah, I'd say get in the room as much as you can. You know, I love working with assistant directors, for example. And so anyone who'd be interested in being an assistant director on a CATCO production, working with me or other directors that we hire, you can email me and just say, hey, I'm really curious about this. And we can figure out how that works. And then figuring out in your own communities, right? Whatever theater company you're involved in, maybe you're still in high school, get involved in your school play. Think about how the structures run. Ask your teacher where the budget comes from and how your teacher decides how much goes to set and how much goes to costume, right? I think curiosity is really important to just think about these core ideas. And then at the end of the day, too, I think in the theater world, we're lucky because if you can find the time, you can make your own work. I know I started a theater company in Milwaukee. I had some plays that I really wanted to do in some specific spaces and not in traditional theater spots. I knew no one else in town was going to do them. So I started a theater company. I named it. I asked some friends to be on my board. They didn't contribute any money, right? They just contributed some time. And then we had a theater company, and I kind of just learned as I was going and thought about, well, how do other people market shows, right? How do other people raise money? Was able to ask a bunch of friends who said, oh, I know how that works, and I'm willing to help you out. I think that we've got a really supportive community of theater people. So if you want to do something, if you've got a play that you love and you can't get anyone to listen to you, just do it yourself. And then, right? And then invite all of us, invite you, invite me, and we'll start to see, wow, this great talent exists.
That's some really great advice. It really is. I want to thank you so much, Leda, for being with us today. And I wish you well in your journey at CATCO and CATCO is Kids and beyond. And just welcome to Central Ohio.
This has been really great. I'm so glad to be here.
And we're so glad to have you.